Nothing in the world is shrouded in as much mystery as ancient Egypt. When the tomb of King Tutankhamun was discovered in 1922, the whole world feared that a series of misfortunes and tragedies would befall the planet because people had disturbed the sacred burial site of a great ruler. To this day, many believe that disturbing the peace of the dead brings bad luck. However, with each new discovery, we learn more about the secrets of this ancient civilization. In this video, we will explore 15 amazing discoveries in Egypt that are sure to amaze everyone. In ancient Egypt, as in many other cultures, having a beard was an important attribute of status and prestige. You might be surprised to learn that some of the most powerful rulers wore false beards. From time to time, archaeologists discover ancient artifacts related to this unusual aspect of Egyptian culture. False beards were not just facial adornments, they were symbols of power, status, and even a sacred duty to the gods. These beards were not merely made of hair. Pharaohs and other high-ranking individuals often wore metallic beards made from precious metals, including gold. These ornaments gave their wearers the appearance of embodying divine authority. Such beards were an integral part of ceremonies and rituals, symbolizing the ruler's connection to the spiritual world and their right to rule. This type of beard was so prevalent in official royal portraits that even the female pharaoh Hatshepsut was depicted with the false beard of Osiris, but it is unclear if she actually wore a false beard in life. Archaeologists working at a site in Egypt have claimed to have found an underground passage that may lead to the long-lost tomb of Queen Cleopatra. The tunnel was discovered beneath the Temple of Osiris Magna in Egypt, carved into the rock at a depth of 13 meters under the temple. The tunnel was more than 1,400 meters long, and the height of the passage reached 180 centimeters. Researchers have been excavating the temple for many years, where they have discovered many ancient valuable artifacts related to the era of Cleopatra. It is assumed that Antony and Cleopatra are buried here. Cleopatra is one of the most famous figures of ancient Egypt. She was one of the 12 recognized pharaohs and the last pharaoh to rule the country. Despite being celebrated as one of Egypt's greatest rulers, no contemporary records of her life survive, and her personality remains one of the most enchanting and mysterious in history, shrouded in many legends and myths. Much of what we know today was obtained from ancient historians such as Plutarch. She was often described as a smart and charming woman who captivated the hearts of men, including the powerful Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. The era of Cleopatra ended when, in 30 BCE, the Roman Emperor Octavian besieged Alexandria. Mark Antony was told that his beloved had taken her own life, and he fell on his sword, also taking his life. It turned out he had been deceived. Cleopatra, having been locked up by Octavian, somehow managed to take her own life and reunite with her lover. Undoubtedly, she is one of the most famous figures in history, and many seek to find the location of her tomb. The search has been ongoing for several decades, but perhaps it will soon end and we will learn even more about this great woman. Experts fear that her tomb may be destroyed or damaged, but thanks to modern technology, scientists will undoubtedly be able to recreate the lost fragments. Among the numerous artifacts and rituals left by the ancient Egyptian civilization, there is another rather frightening discovery: a board game called the Game of Death. This unusual form of entertainment combined elements of a board game, ritual, and spiritual communion with the afterlife. The essence of this game was to help the deceased transition into the afterlife on their final journey. The game board, resembling a template, symbolized the underworld. Participants would throw dice and move their pieces across the board, trying to reach the final square first. What makes this game particularly remarkable is that it provided a way for living people to communicate with the souls of the dead. Together, they underwent trials, overcame obstacles, and shared moments of joy and laughter. It was not just a form of entertainment, but also a way to maintain a connection with departed loved ones. The Game of Death became popular in ancient Egyptian society about 5,000 years ago. Both pharaohs and common people participated in this ritual, which became an integral part of their culture and customs. Even in tombs, drawings were found depicting the deceased playing this game with their relatives and friends, highlighting its significance to the ancient Egyptians. In 2020, archaeologists discovered 83 unusual burials in the Dalia province of northern Egypt. Typically, burials in ancient Egypt are found in stone sarcophagi, but these graves were made of clay. The graves belong to the Buto civilization and represent a rare find. Most of the graves date from the first half of the 4000–3000 BCE period, known as the Nakata III period. This culture is extremely ancient even by Egyptian standards, dating to a time before the start of the pharaonic monarchy in Egypt. Unlike many tombs in ancient Egypt, the discovered burials were spherical pits. Inside, the deceased were buried in a fetal position, not the usual sleeping pose. Along with the deceased, rare artifacts such as oyster shells, handmade pottery, and paint bowls were found. Many of the discoveries are adorned with gold. This is the first instance where archaeologists have found pottery burial in this region of Egypt, and as research progresses, we will learn even more about this ancient civilization. When the funerary temple of Amenhotep II in the western part of Luxor was excavated, archaeologists found several strange vessels with lids carved in the image of Egyptian protectors. Initially, archaeologists thought these vessels contained important artifacts, but it turned out that they held the preserved internal organs of the deceased. These ancient clay products, called canopic jars, were made from limestone or ceramics. The ancient Egyptians used these vessels during the embalming process to help preserve the organs of the deceased. Nearly all internal organs, the brain, stomach, intestines, liver, kidneys, and lungs, were removed from the body. Typically, the Egyptians used 4 canopic jars, which were adorned with the images of the heads of the sons of the Egyptian god Horus. Each vessel was designated for storing a specific organ: Hapi with the head of a baboon, which held the lungs; Imsiti with a human head for the liver; Duamutef with the head of a jackal, intended for the stomach; Kebesenuef with the head of a falcon, guarded the intestines. It was believed that only these parts of the body would be needed in the afterlife. No hearts were found in the canopic jars because the Egyptians believed this to be the most important organ, known as the vessel of the soul, and thus the heart always remained inside the deceased. Interestingly, no human brain was ever found. Scholars assume that the Egyptians did not consider it necessary for the afterlife and simply discarded it. What do you think really happened to this organ? Write your guesses in the comments. And a reminder that you can now subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to not miss our new releases. And we continue. We have already discussed how seriously the ancient Egyptians took the afterlife. In fact, they believed that the afterlife would be a reflection of their earthly life. For the ancient Egyptians, every detail had its role and significance, including preparations for the journey to the afterlife. This is how Sabti dolls came into being. Small but symbolic figurines, ranging from 5 to 30 centimeters in height, and they were not just toys. These peculiar dolls were often placed in graves to accompany the deceased, and they were striking not only in their purpose but also in their appearance. Each Sabti doll had an inscription on its outer layer, written in hieroglyphs. These inscriptions contained spells and prayers meant to assist the deceased in their journey to the afterlife. Sabti dolls were quite expensive at the time, and if a person was not fortunate enough to be born into a wealthy family, they would try to acquire at least one doll to help them in the afterlife. However, the rich and influential people could have many more. It was believed that the more dolls you had, the less work you would have to do in the afterlife. Pharaohs and other high-ranking individuals often had vast collections of these dolls, so many that they were impossible to count. Sabti dolls were considered sacred objects and carried protection and blessings for the deceased. Any attempt to take a doll from the burial to which it belonged was seen as extreme disrespect to the deceased and threatened with curses and the wrath of the gods. In ancient Egypt, cats held a special place in culture and religion. It was believed that these mysterious animals possessed magical power and brought good luck to their owners. On ancient Egyptian structures, countless symbols depicting cats attest to the high status of this animal. Cats protected homes from rodents and snakes, ensuring the safety of the people. It is also known that the goddess Bastet the patroness of the home, love, fertility, and protector against contagious diseases and evil spirits, was depicted with the head of a cat. However, one of the main reasons why cats were revered in ancient Egypt might have been that members of the royal families kept cats, but not just any ordinary domestic cats, but their giant counterparts. This is evidenced by the mummified remains of large cats found in Saqqara. Research on these remains has proven that they were small lion cubs of 8 months old. This discovery greatly astonished scientists, as it was the first case of finding intact mummy cubs. It confirmed the fact that ancient Egyptians cared for lions and possibly even panthers, cheetahs, and other members of the cat family. These powerful animals were not just the domestic pets of the Egyptian pharaohs, but symbolized the strength and power of kings. Just imagine these wild predators roaming around Egypt. In those times, lions were associated with the sun and the pharaoh, making them some of the most important members of the cat family. Modern research on mummified cats allows scientists to gain a deeper understanding of ancient Egyptian culture, their beliefs, and rituals. The ancient Egyptians were known for their special attitude towards death. They revered and mummified the deceased because they believed in an afterlife. One of the most important discoveries to date is the Book of the Dead. This book is a collection of special religious spells and guides intended for the deceased on their final journey to the afterlife. The Book of the Dead details how to enter paradise, how to converse with gods, and much more. Essentially, it is a guide to the afterlife for the ancient Egyptians. In the afterlife, the deceased had to carefully pass all the tests and meet several gods before they could live there forever. The scroll features images of Osiris, the king of the afterlife, and the judge of souls, and includes scenes with boats intended to transport the soul of the deceased through the underworld. Each fragment of this find is incredibly important. A 4-meter-long papyrus, once part of this book, remains one of the most incredible discoveries to this day. Stonehenge is one of the main mysteries of history. It is located in England and is estimated to be about 5,000 years old. Initially, many believed it to be the oldest prehistoric monument in the world, but the discovery of the Nabta Playa artifact in the Aswan province of Egypt at the end of the last century proved otherwise. According to research, this megalith was built 7,000 years ago, predating Stonehenge by almost 2,000 years. Nabta Playa consists of massive stone circles with a diameter of only 4 meters. The circle comprises several stones, including 4 pairs of large stones and a series of smaller stones. In the center of the circle are 2 rows of 3 stones each. Satellite images have shown that 2 pairs align, forming a north-south line, while the other 2 pairs form an east-west line. So why were these circles created and why are they so important? Scientists suggest that Nabta Playa might have been an ancient sanctuary or even a place for rituals and ceremonies. Some claim that these circles could reflect the days of the solstice and point to the position of the Orion constellation, making them a kind of astronomical instrument. It is known that this site was first discovered in 1974 by a group of scientists led by Fred Wendorf. Unfortunately, over time, many of the stone circles have been damaged or destroyed, especially after Nabta Playa attracted the attention of tourists and researchers. This is a significant loss to human heritage, as this artifact could reveal even more information about Egypt's ancient history. Every discovery that tells us something about ancient Egypt is incredible, but sometimes archaeologists encounter truly astonishing things. In 2014, a rather terrifying find was unearthed in the burial complex of Harwa in the ancient city of Thebes. Archaeologists found remnants of the Cyprian plague that devastated ancient civilization. This epidemic claimed over 50,000 lives and was so destructive that it was dubbed the plague of the end of the world. It not only decimated thousands of lives, but also had a severe impact on agriculture and the progress of the Roman Empire. At the excavation site, evidence of a bonfire and lime-filled pots were found. It is believed that the plague victims were treated with lime before being burned to prevent the spread of the disease. During the height of the epidemic, between 250 and 266 AD, Thousands died daily. The plague affected much of Egypt, which was then part of the Roman Empire. Symptoms of the disease included nausea, bloody discharge from the eyes, and in some cases, amputations were necessary. Nowadays, these symptoms can be managed, but at that time they were deadly. Scientists are trying to extract DNA from the remains of the plague victims, but this is extremely difficult. Perhaps it's for the best, as we would not want another epidemic to arise. It is known that the ancient Egyptians mummified not only humans, but also animals. Archaeologists have found thousands of mummified remains of cats, dogs, lions, baboons, and even birds of prey. Another rare discovery was made by archaeologists during excavations in the northern part of the Kina province in Egypt. The mummified remains of a 4-meter crocodile were uncovered, surprising researchers as it was the first time mummified symbols of the crocodile god Sobek had been found in this region. This god was considered the protector of water and the flooding of the Nile, and was depicted with a crocodile's head. According to ancient Egyptian beliefs, Sobek repelled the forces of darkness and protected people from them. In addition to the giant mummy, several smaller mummified crocodiles were also found. This discovery demonstrates the Egyptians' reverence for this divine creature. Today, the crocodile is considered a dangerous predator that should be avoided. However, during the time of the pharaohs, this reptile was an object of worship and offerings to the gods. Such sacrifices were not considered cruelty, but rather a privilege for the animal. The found crocodile bodies were not covered with bandages and resin, and the internal organs were not removed. Apparently, they were buried in hot sand, where the bodies dried naturally. Then they were dug up, wrapped in palm leaves, and placed in a tomb. The reptile was so well preserved that researchers actually found traces of the crocodile's last meal in its stomach: eggs, fish, and a rodent. Ancient Egyptians were famed for their talent in decorating nearly every available surface, be it temple walls, tomb interiors, statues, or furniture. However, recent research has shown that their penchant for adornment did not stop there. In the forgotten settlement of Deir el-Medina on the banks of the Nile, archaeologists discovered mummies, some 3,000 years old, with numerous hidden tattoos revealed through infrared imaging. Some of the tattoos featured up to 30 unique images, including animals, symbols, and abstract patterns. The meaning of these tattoos remains a subject of debate. All discovered tattoos at Deir el-Medina belonged to women who might have been artisans or the wives of workers living in this valley. Why they chose to adorn their bodies with tattoos remains a mystery, but it was undoubtedly an expression of culture and self-expression in those ancient times. It is possible that this body art was associated with the roles of women as healers and priestesses, rather than solely with fertility and sexuality. This discovery has become one of the most astonishing evidences of ancient traditions and customs. While many questions remain unanswered, each new discovery brings us more knowledge about the mysterious world of ancient Egypt. In 1881, the mummified body of a woman was discovered in one of the Theban tombs in Egypt. Known as Lady Rai, the mummy was unwrapped in 1991, and her remains were immediately hailed as a testament to the skill and precision of embalming techniques of that time, as well as one of the most beautiful ancient mummies found in Egypt. Little is known about Lady Rai's life. She is believed to have lived around 1530 BCE, with her age at death estimated between 30 to 40 years. From writings left about Lady Rai, we know that she was a nursemaid to Queen Ahmose Nefertari, the first queen of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt. It is also believed that she belonged to one of the notable families of that era, as her body was found in a rich burial. The embalming process for Lady Rai was unusual. Her body was wrapped in linen cloth, coated with a mixture of resin and sand. When archaeologists opened Lady Rai's tomb, the most astonishing thing they noticed was the mummy's hair, which appeared alive and had retained its structure. While historians and archaeologists highly value the mummy, many people condemn such research, fearing that a curse might befall those who continue to disturb the remains of the ancient Egyptians. Osiris, according to Egyptian belief, was considered the god of the underworld, the god of resurrection. It is no exaggeration to say that nearly all of Egyptian mythology is built around this deity. In 1933 to 34, Egyptian archaeologist Salim Hassan, while clearing a road between the Pyramid of Khafra and the granite temple near the Sphinx, made a mysterious discovery, a passage found under the road that went deep underground. Today, this site is known as the Tomb of Osiris or the Osiris Shaft. According to legend, it is here that the ancient Egyptian god found his final resting place. The shaft has several levels, with the lowest level being filled with water, which posed an obstacle to further exploration. It was not until the summer of 1999 that Egyptologist Dr. Zahi Hawass, with the help of engineering solutions, managed to pump out the water from the lowest level and begin comprehensive research. And what was discovered deep underground? Here, decorations made of various natural precious stones depicting the likeness of Osiris were found. On the second level of the shaft, 5 sarcophagi were discovered, each weighing over 4 tons. The most mysterious discovery is the last sarcophagus, found on the 3rd level. It differs from the previous ones in that it is made of granite, and the room in which it was placed was originally designed in such a way that the islet elevating the sarcophagus was always surrounded by water. Architecturally, the Osiris shaft has no parallel in ancient Egyptian art. It is not for nothing that the complex of shafts is said to be a symbolic burial chamber of the god himself. Some claim that a cursed artifact lies somewhere in the shaft, and that the god continues to guard the underground tunnels of the Giza Plateau to this day. Many people fear that the exploration of the complex will provoke the wrath of the god. When we talk about ancient Egypt, we usually recall pyramids, pharaohs, and the mysterious hieroglyphs on temple walls. One of the most popular theories is the suggestion that ancient Egyptians were visited by aliens. Many believe that the pyramids were too complex to have been built by humans in ancient times, and thus they must have had alien assistance. Another reason many think that Egyptians interacted with aliens is the discovery of strange skulls with elongated bones in ancient Egyptian burials. These skulls have sparked immense interest and numerous questions among scientists. It is known that elongated skulls were the prerogative of pharaohs and the priestly caste, the elite of ancient society, who possessed special status and power. In the Egyptian view, pharaohs were not only rulers of the country, but also bearers of divine power on earth. By having an appearance that was close to the form of the gods, they emphasized their connection with celestial forces and asserted their divine origin. For example, in ancient Egyptian art, it is common to find depictions of noble individuals with sharp or elongated heads. Even some statues of pharaohs have oddly elongated heads. Nefertiti, Akhenaten, and Tutankhamun are all known for their elongated skulls and slender necks. These strange features, combined with mixed feminine and masculine traits, led researchers to think that perhaps the unusual appearance of many pharaohs is simply the result of genetic defects. This is just one hypothesis, and the truth about the elongated skulls of Egypt remains a mystery. Perhaps by deforming their skulls, pharaohs sought to resemble their gods visually, or maybe they had deep spiritual or cultural significance that we still cannot fully understand. However, some still believe that the eccentric appearance of the pharaohs was due to their descent from other planets. And remember, friends, the world is full of amazing discoveries. Don't miss the chance to dive into this mysterious world and explore all its corners with us. And to not miss out on the next exciting stories, don't forget to subscribe and like. Your support is our inspiration. Thank you for your attention and see you soon.